This is a poster for Fright Night 1985, and this is a poster for Fright Night 2011. While both are sinister, one relies on the actors and their characters' badassery, while the original unsettles you with a calm suburban home and terrifying presence you're both curious of and repulsed by. The silhouette in the window conveys a sense of being alone in whatever situation haunts the character in a scene that not only frightens you, but draws you in. You've just entered the Gen Experience. I'm Victor, and like you, I stared into the movie posters of my generation with wonder, imagining what this mysterious new world would offer. As much a work of art as the movie themselves, the poster was a singular piece of advertising gold, and one of the only pieces of media we could glean any additional information from about the coming attraction. If you fondly remember these incredible one-sheeters that engaged our senses, please click the like. I could really use your help continuing to make great content from the era where the best stuff came from, so please consider supporting me by pressing subscribe. By now, you've probably seen a number of videos about the current trend that has been going on way too long, the movie poster tropes. Whether romantic comedies and their back-to-back pose, the thriller with the characters back to the viewer, the floating big heads for like every other genre, as well as the blue, gold, orange color scheme, there just seems to be little creativity left in the medium. But that wasn't always the case. Movie posters have evolved and changed since the first one in the 1800s. Through the generations, their imagery has been modified to attract their audience. But the poster as fine visual art? It's extinct. Posters that told a story in meticulous handmade drawings and paintings that were either minimalistic or wrought with detail and elements of what action you could expect, the style of film you might see, all while engaging the onlooker and intriguing us to return to the theater, are all a thing of the past, replaced with dull assembly line pieces of advertising trash that simply sell the title and the same old optics we're getting used to. Nothing new, nothing inspiring, nothing to tantalize. Some of the best movie posters as one-sheet exposition existed within the Gen Experience. From the 70s to late 80s, craftsmen toiled weeks, sometimes months, to grab our attention with beautiful pieces of visual storytelling that studio heads today couldn't care less about by the look of things. Take, for example, the 1978 Death on the Nile. This Agatha Christie film's poster sets the stage with the very shape the collected images create. A pyramid made with the actors as their characters framed the motif, the style and setting yet to come. Obviously Egyptian, but the subtle addition of the dagger and the revolver in the hieroglyphs' hands are the most telling. This is a murder mystery. Who are the individuals? What part do they play? And who is the victim and the killer? Those are the questions we ask, and only going to the movie will answer them. Of course, heads of stars and actors have been used for years in marketing, sometimes as little more than a thumbnail, others a bust or sometimes an entire figure of the lead in something representing a scene from the film. These are the most effective when photo reference hand-painted images tell the story within the poster, instead of a simple photoshopped picture grouped into a mindless and unimaginative way that is completely void of a narrative. Simply put, fine art, artistic representation of reality or photographs, just looks better, has a great texture, feels more real, more tactile. With Raiders of the Lost Ark, the complete picture of dozens of images carefully plotted onto the sheet are familiar to anyone who has experienced this true classic, but because of the artist's own style and their little touches to make it their own with their hand-painted talent, each character and setting is still slightly different, original than when it was viewed on screen. When seeing this poster for the first time, you couldn't ignore the sense of adventure, danger, and mystery that will be presented in what can only be described as an exotic thrill ride. Movie posters could show the characters in a standalone composition or in scenes pulled directly from the film. Often, they would simply allude to what the story was about with something vaguely story-related, and not a direct shot from the movie, but something that prepares us for what we'll see nonetheless. Obviously, a moment that is taken from the film, but with some liberties. But that makes no difference. Not quite a minimalistic design, but still a vast canvas with a couple of opposing images. The Jaws poster conveys the beat of the story without giving any of the plot. There is danger in the water, and it's not going to go well. Scenes from movies are important for posters. They can either be simplified or enhanced visions of those scenes. As with what are thought to be key moments, the poster wants to make an indelible memory of the film when watching the final product that connects you back to the poster's image. In a very far-reaching example of this, the original Mad Max uses artwork that seems to have been created before they knew Mel Gibson was even the star. The main character is depicted as a space cop with features and costuming that is far removed from the film's final look, but close enough that with the vehicle and body lying seamlessly lifeless on the side can still connect us to the images on the screen, although distantly, while still engaging our senses past simple curiosity. At the same time, The Thing poster is a bit metaphysical in nature. An indistinguishable unknown and unease are aroused when looking at it. Not a moment from the film per se, but after watching the Kurt Russell classic, there is an understanding of what it is the poster is trying to relay. Alien from 1979 is similar in the fact that it is a fairly singular object in the vastness of the cosmos. The sinister crack is far from how the alien eggs are viewed on screen. But this was connected to the trailer that we saw on TV or prior to another film, which included the action of the egg cracking. It really didn't matter that the alien egg did not open this way in the film. The dramatic effect and the still on the poster itself gave us a feeling of foreboding. And that tagline just complemented the visuals incredibly. In space, no one can hear you scream. Taglines are a completely different story altogether and a great topic for another show, but this era excelled at tying the imagery on the poster together with a short tagline to complete an expectation of how you should feel for this almost 2-hour experience through one large sheet of visual storytelling. Setting a tone in new and original ways was hallmark to promote an upcoming film, and is sadly lost in the medium for today's big-budget blockbusters. Friday the 13th, the original, and Gremlins both take a similar style, but add a little more setting. Here, we're hinted at something terrifying within the isolated forest setting of the camp counselors near their cabin. Here, the seemingly harmless Christmas present being held by the main character made use of the Jaws template, but with slightly more story being given away. Poltergeist is an example of taking a pivotal moment from the film and removing anything ancillary from that very moment, any extras around the character and that TV, to solely focus on the key scene. The image in the movie is short but vital. A simplified bridge between the poster and the moving images on screen help to make the scene immortal. We all know it, we remember it. This was a time period of great storytelling posters, one that we just don't see anymore. A bunch of hand-painted vignettes in a collage could set a mood and tone that was popular during this time, as it could share so much on such a little space. Star Wars' original poster is inspired by the film, but unlike Jaws, it is vast and busy with action, where no space is not full. Whether or not the visuals are exactly from the movie doesn't really matter. It is a veritable buffet of scenes that depict the action we encounter once our butts are in the theater seats. Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi would follow this formula to complete success. On the other end of the spectrum at the time was Capricorn 1. The film was one foot in the disaster film genre that was fading away, and the other in political intrigue and government conspiracy. And when does conspiracy go out of style, am I right? The images show the actors in their boxes, heads in boxes like thumbnails, to sell the movie with star power. But a hand-painted movie scene that isn't quite film accurate gives the viewer a sense of the high-stake action they're sure to experience. Just look at Towering Inferno, Meteor, or Poseidon Adventure to see this genre's favorite poster style. Comedies, on the other hand, were a completely different beast, and they followed their own set of rules. The movie posters to sell a comedy used clear images, often of the characters, mostly photographs, sometimes touched up, but in a manner that is either directly representative of the film's plot or offers all the hijinks in some sort of montage of movie moments jam-packed in a comic image to sell you that this is gonna be bonkers. Fast Times at Ridgemont High gives you the actors front and center, the characters in one frame that tells you what kind of shenanigans you're in for. Now, the comic book or comic strip style poster was important especially for an R-rated comedy. Although not used for Airplane, which was oddly very simplistic, the wild and wacky images let your eyes wander and imagine all the hysterical situations these characters are going to get into. Comedies were a hard sell sometimes. An established actor like Lily Tomlin may only need herself in a gorilla's hand, but Animal House and Best Little Whorehouse in Texas used the almost Mad Magazine or collage of characters and scenes to busy the poster and assure you this was going to be some wild romp, especially if there was some risque business at hand. A lot is given away on these posters, but so many details help get us interested. Movies like this did not often have any accompanying marketing other than the trailer. There were movie magazines around, plenty, but they all seemed to lean sci-fi, so comedies and other genres had very few outlets outside of the coming attraction or the movie poster. You were lucky if a magazine shared an on-set photo, production still, slipped out a secret or a cut scene, but no matter how mass-marketed magazines were, they still didn't have the coverage of social media today. We all went into a theater on the same playing field as everybody else. We went in together with no more information than anyone else in the audience. No secrets, no Easter eggs, just a group of people about to have a shared experience that would be the talk of the office water cooler or on the playground the next day and for the next week or month. Finding out Vader was Luke's father together, or the collective gasp of the surprise to the crying game, was a universal experience we could have had with perfect strangers. But they weren't strangers at the time. The secrets of the movie were hinted at in the trailer and teased in these great posters of the era. There were two main posters for E.T., and both show space, a lot of it, and one more terrestrial than the other. You had a sense of ease and comfort in this story about an alien, and not one to dread, but the majesty and magic was clearly on display with the use of soothing and heartwarming colors. This was not an alien to be feared. Superman was also a friendly alien. We knew what Soup looked like, but this was class. This was grand, and only whet our appetite for the incredible original superhero film and the charismatic lead of Christopher Reeves. There were often two versions of a poster, aside from any international releases. There was always a main one, but perhaps another was created for immediately before or immediately after the debut. Nothing like today, we're up to 10 versions of boring schlock that simply highlight a character like on their own baseball card that tells us nothing about what's in store. I suppose they figure you got all the information you need from the endless barrage of content, on-set footage, leaks, fake leaks, interviews, press junkets, social media influencers thinking they've got the inside scoop but just make shit up. The posters are more like a big flyer, with overblown titles and an underwhelming sense of awe. Or even dread. Carrie was a poster that shows you what to expect by giving you happy-go-lucky Carrie and dark killer Carrie. It was no spoiler. It served to bring in the crowd, and the blood-covered prom queen image is remarkably well preserved in pop culture. The movie was a success, and just like Alien, the tagline was the poster's best friend. Sci-fi wasn't going anywhere fast, and the use of exciting special effects, computer imagery, and space combined to engage our senses with imagery that once again did not show us the film, but what emotions we should feel watching the film. Those images intrigued us without spoiling much at all. Serving the story with exciting imagery, bold design choices, and mysterious darkness were just some of the feelings we were meant to experience when captivated by posters for things like Tron, Star Trek, any of them, and the Black Hole. Now, sword and sorcery came into their own in the 1980s. It was as if sci-fi fathered that child on the silver screen. He-Man may not have started it, but Dungeons and Dragons, Frank Frazetta, and the world of Conan were all ready to go and become part of a larger fantasy realm that allowed elements of wizards and warriors to take over the movie poster in new and exciting ways to promote the films of that sort. Perhaps collages of actors, perhaps scenes from films, these posters still relied heavily on artistic representations of key characters and moments in the movies to sell the product. And it worked on such movies as Kroll, Conan with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dragon Slayer, and even Willow. The busy montage was not only for certain genres, but a throwback visual for another, the film noir. Blade Runner is simply one of the best movies ever made and ties for my favorite film. Blade Runner gives us a dystopian noir poster that is highly sci-fi influenced while still keeping us grounded in classic movies like The Maltese Falcon or Dark Passage. Still, sometimes a still from the film was just enough of a selling point. The image was real, perhaps directly lifted from the movie, but it told a story in itself and touched us somehow, speaking to our own experiences with defeat, adversity, or achievement, like Private Benjamin, Rocky, or The Right Stuff. Still, no floating heads like there are today, but as we mentioned, each generation has its own movie poster motif. It is just a little depressing that marketing companies now come up with the movie poster in minute and have some hotshot Photoshop take care of the handful of movie posters that don't engage us, just bore us. Animation did not differ from its live-action cousins in this grand time of the movie poster. Imagery to tell a quick one-sheet story or introduce the characters surrounded by promises of what the film will deliver was a success and commonly duplicated in animated films. Transformers, the 1986 movie, gave us Star Wars vibes, and Disney's doomed Black Cauldron gave us Kroll and Legend, only with brighter colors. The mid-80s mixed the medium as transitions were on the horizon. Pictures of characters and scenes mostly representative of the film became center stage in a movie poster. For Back to the Future and Terminator, it's quite obviously selling the idea, but also the actor. Detailed paintings still existed to transport us to exotic locations, promising swashbuckling adventure, like in Romancing the Stone, Temple of Doom, and even Goonies. A rare movie poster of simplicity was found in Ghostbusters from 1984. There were two main versions. Both have the iconic logo for the Ghost Fighting Quartet, but only one shows us a photo of the boys in action. That logo would be synonymous with the film and the franchise. The logo itself was a rare movie poster ad for the time, but that simple iconic image would resurface time and time again, most notably with Batman in 1989 and Jurassic Park in 1993. Still in 1984, a notably gorgeous poster for the Freshman franchise, Nightmare on Elm Street, was released. Obviously based on a scene from the film, the imagery is both off-putting and exciting. Not familiar in look, but very familiar in feel for anyone who has seen the film. For those who hadn't, it is a mindfuck of disturbing imagery that holds true to the spirit of the essence of this unique film. There would be additional posters of this made to better represent the characters depicted in the film. On the completely other end of the spectrum is John Hughes. He and his coming-of-age stories in the 80s approached the movie poster from a decidedly specific angle. These were photographs of the cast, almost all of them from photo shoots, and only served to help the audience recognize the young cast members. Not specifically the characters, but the cast themselves. The young actors who would be deemed the Brat Pack were showcased clearly so audiences could identify the actor and the movie would speak to its target audience. 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, St. Elmo's Fire, and even The Outsiders all have a very simple picture, obviously from cast photos, often accompanied by not a tagline, but a synopsis of the story. Sometimes even a few paragraphs of emotional monologue intended to connect us with the story, even before going in. This is what made them the teen coming-of-age stories my generation identifies with. Now, while Star Trek sequels continued to successfully employ the conceptual poster with bold colors and lines, the photo stills and simple imagery would begin to take more center stage. Movie posters began to put the actor front and center, and although holdouts for the tactile and textured world created by the craftsmen behind the handmade movie posters would continue with the likes of Labyrinth and Big Trouble in Little China, it was clear that showcasing a main focal point or actor with a tagline would suffice. Big is a bigger-than-life example. Predator, Heathers, Die Hard, RoboCop, and even Dirty Dancing were saying goodbye to the detailed images that set a tone and mood for a gorgeous visual art toiled by hand. To be frank, the fantasy, the sci-fi space opera, and the Saturday morning adventure serials were taking a backseat to real-life exciting action movie and drama. Things continued to change with the very real-life movie posters like Mystic Pizza and Steel Magnolias, including only photos of the cast. They strayed even more from the film itself by not having the cast in character for the posters. Especially obvious is Shirley MacLaine, who looks nothing like her character Weezer from the movie, but as her, Shirley MacLaine, showcased with the rest of the incredible ensemble female cast. Comedy poster styles wouldn't change much over the decade, as seen here with Kindergarten Cop. Similar to 9 to 5, the actor in a laughable situation is highlighted to tell you this is going to be hysterical. Come see your favorites in a happy-go-lucky wild ride. Toward the end of the decade, there would be holdovers of all kinds welcoming in the new generation. Beetlejuice, as a horror comedy, had a movie poster with a fun feeling of 9 to 5, but with the rich tapestry design of some of the best detailed hand-painted work. While Misery set another tone for being alone in a big world without any characters present. Ghost would depict a scene from the film, but with those big heads starting to make their debut in posters. The famous acting duo, Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, would cement their moment of movie chemistry with this larger-than-life representation of a moment of the film that we could connect with. The fun of Roger Rabbit's movie poster stands alone, as does Dick Tracy's comic adaptation with Warren Beatty. His being of note of extreme narcissistic ambition on all the posters for his movie, highlighting him as the main draw, clearly and completely. A League of Their Own uses a baseball card motif to demonstrate the thumbnails of actors' faces, albeit creatively, to sell the film. And finally, what feels like the last bit of that rich handiwork comes with the dynamics of The Rocketeer, Edward Scissorhands, Hook, and even Hocus Pocus. Although they are very clearly featuring their actors as the main draw, heads are getting bigger in some cases, the movie poster art is clearly not projecting an overall story element to pull from. The actors are now in the way. They are the forefront. Nothing else matters around them. And the image are photographs being manipulated into a common collage in what amounts to a simple transition to the great big heads in the sky movie posters that are on the horizon by this time, and still commonplace today. The gorgeous artwork of Gen X movie posters. So much time, effort, and thought went into many of these larger-than-life storytelling one-sheeters. And ponder this. Many of these great films, featured with gorgeous pieces of poster art, are the same films being rebooted today. Sequel after sequel and reimaginings happening every year. It just goes to show that it was these movies, these modern classics, that still inspire us today, long after their first release. They have the staying power where others do not. Which was your favorite poster? I did not cover them all. There are so many wonderful posters out there. I just gave you a sampling, but there's so many during this time that told a story, wasn't obvious, gave you a feeling. What did you get? Are there any others from this time that you love and want to share with us? Please do in the comments and we can discuss it there. Thank you so much for joining me on this little YouTube time machine to an era of art that prepared for journeys beyond our wildest imaginations. Hey everybody, if you loved your YouTube time travel or just wish you could have lived it, you can right here in the Gen Experience. Please click that like and know how much it helps me when you press subscribe. Now look around the channel and don't forget those shorts for other great content like this. For those returning to the show, thank you so much for watching. And first timers, welcome. And until next time.